And also, Tom's correct, we took the back road to get here from Greensburg. There's no easy way, and we're almost late. We came up to the stop sign. Stay away from that intersection. But we finally found our way.
I think Dave Eads had that put up.
A couple things I just want to talk about with the culture leading up into this year and things that we're doing, and we'll really get into the meat and details. Is kind of developing that culture within the building. You know, it starts with building trust and rapport. And then Tom said it before, it's not a gotcha. You know, we're all trying to learn this. I'm not waiting around the corner. I'm going to jump in your classroom and pick you apart. It's not. It's a learning process. The evaluation should be what observation should be. We all have strengths. We all have some things that we need to improve on. And just because I've seen it one time doesn't make you an ineffective teacher, or doesn't make you a highly effective teacher. And I tell teachers that all the time. I will write down the evidence that I saw at that time. You need to go back and look at that evidence. If it's something that's ineffective, improvement necessary, you need to reflect on that and say, what can I do better next time? That doesn't mean at the end of the year that's where you're gonna end up. Same thing with highly effective. I saw something great the first time, that's what you need to continue doing. So we need to develop that trust and that rapport going in. And as a principal, as you know, the focus is on students. And that's the focus, how to get back on the teachers. Because there's so much negativity out there. You just turn on the news and you hear all kinds of stuff. The focus needs to get back on the students. This is what's best for kids. And a lot of your great teachers are already doing this. And as we're going through their indicators, Dave, I'm already collecting data. I'm already looking at my short cycle assessments and preparing lessons. I said, that's great. The issue is not everybody is. So continue doing those things, and that will help alleviate, because some of the high effective teachers are the ones that are just, they're nervous as heck about this. So, you need to calm them down and help coach up the other ones. And you are the buffer between the state and the teachers. There's a lot of things that come out from the state, and you need to, you guys already know this, I'm not preaching to the choir, but you kind of need to soak that in and not give all that to the teachers. I was hoping for the A through F model to be out Monday, and then, we get the email that they're not. We were told that we had to do this security, agreement, integrity, and we got to do that before the end of August. I had a special meeting planned. I was going to get donuts. We're going to come in the morning, and then I already had it planned, and then here comes another email. Well, never mind. We're going to do it in September. So those things you kind of need to protect the teachers from, and don't let their focus be on kids. Administration book studies. We've been doing those. Our next one's called Common Core. It's about this big that we're doing a book study on. But those are things that help me grow as an administrator, because we're, again, constantly learning. I take those back to help the teachers. We've done Tabani, the building level, do I have to teach reading, Smoker, DeFore. So we've looked at a lot of different ones, and it kind of opens your mind a little bit. So constantly learning. We're in this together, no one's on an island. That's what I tell teachers. The day, when I first started teaching 13 years ago, was here's your textbook, see you in 30 years, let me know how it goes. And that was it. I was in my island. Those days are gone. We're going to be a team, we're going to collaborate, and it's important that teachers understand that. And the report and the things that we have in our building, the teachers that help out each other. I'm going to show you some things after lunch of some resources that some teachers created on their own. And they'll go back, and then they're going to get their observation. They're going to go back and show everybody else, what'd you get? And they're going to communicate. And that's great. I tell them to do that. And I tell them, when we do an observation, if I were you, I would take that word for rise, and I would highlight every indicator I'm giving you. So at the end of the year, there's no surprises. When I had to have those tough conversations with those teachers that weren't as effective as what they thought they were, those weren't that tough. They knew it was coming, and we were helping coaching them along as it went. But it's all backed up by evidence. But it goes back to that building that culture. Starting collaboration, we built that in the daily schedule. So once we build it in, this must be important, and it is. We have 600 students in our building, so twice a week we collaborate. We collaborate for 40 minutes. That means teachers get a 40-minute lunch, and they have 40 minutes to collaborate. So that means I got to take 600 students and do something with them for those 80 minutes. So half of them we eat lunch, the other half are in the gym, they're in the auditorium. We're bringing guest speakers in the auditorium. We have a pirate production club now for junior high students who create different activities. They did the history of gummy bears and wanted to present it to the kids during that time. So we have to get creative and do things. When we do that, teachers are allowed to go collaborate. Every Tuesdays are department meetings. And then Thursdays are either grade level meetings, committee meetings, or what I call open collaboration within the month. If there's something you want to get together with maybe one other person, or if you need another grade level meeting or another department, it's open collaboration. And that's been very beneficial. It's helped us through RISE, through last year, for teachers to be able to collaborate and look at things. We examined the best practices in Marzano's Essential 9. I did put that on my PowerPoint just because you guys quizzed me on it, what those 9 are. I can turn around and look at them. But those are the 9 that we kind of looked at through our collaboration time. We use quality tools to save time, the affinity tool, other things like that to help save some time. We always do plus delta. We had an open house the other night. We did plus delta to have the open house go. And levels of professionalism. Starts with dress, positive phone calls. And I really hit that hard with the staff. You know, we are professionals in this building. You are professionals when you come to school every day. We need to look like professionals, we need to act like professionals. And professionals don't clock in at 8 and leave at 3. I'm not sure if those days ever existed, but they're not here anymore. When the summer's here, what a great opportunity for you to do some professional development and do things. And that's what a professional does. I mean, I don't want to go to a doctor, knee surgeon, and say, I've been doing knee surgeries for 30 years. I don't need it. I know what I'm doing, right? That's not the doctor I want to go to. I want one that's up to speed and always current. And then we also created department chairs. Now that was new to us. I know it's not a new concept to a lot of schools, but that was new to us. We're really utilizing those this year. We had a retreat this past summer, talking about developing those leaders. Mr. Hunter talked about developing those leaders within the school. So that's really been beneficial because I can kind of lean on them, give out some information. For example, the code that teachers are supposed to read before they sign off on the security and integrity agreement. That's kind of going through the department chairs to get that information out. Curriculum maps, that's one of the most important things. Again, that's not a new concept. It was new to us. Mrs. Williams came in and worked with our departments 2 years ago before RISE got here. I mean, we kind of got lucky. We just started developing these curriculum maps. You know, what do you want your kids to know? Because we're trying to develop a PLC. We're not there yet, but we're on our way. You know, be a professional learning community. What do you want your students to know? How do you know that they learned it? And what do you do when they don't learn? And that RISE kind of encompasses all that. So the first thing we did is develop curriculum maps. What do we want our students to know? We took those and developed those into short cycle assessments. Okay? And that gets rid of the sage on the stage. I taught it, chapter 2, move on. I tested, doesn't matter what they scored. It takes away all that. And we're looking for mastery, our students mastering the concepts. And I tell teachers all the time, and I'll show you an example of some short cycle assessment data that I get back. It's not to impress me. Okay? Please do not come back to me and say, hey, I got 90%, look at this. All year, all 9%, and I-STEP scores come back and we're at 50. Okay? That's not very impressive to me. That is for you to gauge, are your students learning? Are they mastering the concepts? And 80%. And we've been talking about that. We've always used 80. Guess what? Guess what the state wants? 90, 90, 90, right? So now maybe we need to look back at our short cycle assessments. Maybe we need to increase it, go 90%. Our math scores are in the 90s. Our language arts are in the 80s. You know, we need to get up there. We need to be 90 across the board. So that's going to help us. Short cycle assessment. The focus is on student learning, and the RISE rubric helped us through that. We've had more conversations in hallways and lunchtime about, and that's true. Last year, that was true. The conversations was a lot more professional, and the conversations taking place this year are just wonderful. And the focus is on student learning. It's not, you know, when we had grade level meetings, we started the PLC, I'd go in each meeting and see how it goes, and it literally started, well, who's got Johnny in class? He's not doing anything. And it was 20, 30 minutes talking about what Johnny's not doing. But you know what? That's a process. We're not going to get there overnight. So we continued working on it. Now we talk about Johnny and his behavior for 5 minutes, or maybe 3, and spend an extra 10 minutes talking about solutions, how we can fix that. And then we move on to other things. We move on to short cycle assessments. We move on our students' learning. And that's, we're getting there. We're not perfect, but we're getting there. And we want to work smarter, not harder. And teachers, you know, number one thing to say is start documenting, and share a little bit about that. Just start documenting things that you do now. That's the number one kickback that I get back from teachers that they hate the most, is I have to document everything. You do. Document when you work with kids, document your extra time. You need to start doing that now. Please do not wait till the end of the year to start documenting that, because that will help the administrators. It will help you when they go to score levels 1 and level 3, where you should be at. And I'll show you a document that actually Sarah created. She's here, so I gotta give her credit. She created the document. And to help teachers, here, keep track of this now, turn that into your administrator, it makes your job a lot easier. And there were days I kind of feel like this. That's my son, he was a couple months old, he'll turn 1 next week, so not only was I going through a rise, I had a little fella at home, my first one. So there's days, you just feel like that with school with Rise. With teachers, I said, okay, coming up with our pilot, here's what's going to happen. We're going to have teacher and principal evaluations. We're going to receive some training over the summer. All teachers will be evaluated every year. And most importantly, when I gave them that indicator, gave them that rubric, I'm sure you already did that this past summer, where are you going to fall at? Which indicators, how are you going to meet those expectations of those indicators? This isn't a gotcha. Here's a document, and then have them collaborate. And one thing Mr. Hunter talked about earlier is the experts come in from outside. We have experts in our building. Use each other. But you have to provide time for them to get together during that collaboration to use each other. The process, it's a 10-minute short observation. My goal to start with was I was going to do 2 observations a day to get started. The reality, it's more like if I'm lucky to get 3 a week is reality. I meant to do one, I think yesterday, and we had a fight break out in the gym, and there goes an hour and a half of investigating and bringing parents in. And those things happen. The short observations, not much of a problem if the schedule change comes up. You can pop in real quick. We have 45-minute classes, so I always debate, okay, do I go in the very beginning of the period, at the end, try to hit the middle. And I have a little chart, Excel spreadsheet to help me keep track of what periods I go in, so I see different periods. So when a teacher says, you always come in during 5th period, that's my worst class, once you come in. So I try to come in different times and different periods, and I keep track of that. The long observations, but you only do 2 of those. 1 first semester, 1 second. Those are the ones you really, you want to set in stone as far as trying to get in there. Now what we're doing this year is we're not announcing our long observations. Last year we announced one, unannounced the other one. This year we're not going to announce any. And here's what I love about that, is you get to see teachers teach. I've had some veteran teachers, and they turn in this beautiful lesson plan, and it's something they usually don't do, but it's elaborate because they know I'm coming in. Something happens, I can't make it to that period, and then they're like, oh, you didn't come in. I spent a lot of time preparing this. And it's not about me, I just want to see you teach. So the unannounced was fantastic. I was able to go in and stay there the whole 40 minutes to see, and then I set up a post-conference. And at that post-conference I say, bring me your lesson plan, bring me everything else. But you can see everything in that 40-minute unannounced, and that's how we're going to do it. I'm not saying you have to do it that way, but it really helped us. The written feedback for each observation, I'll show an example on this PowerPoint about that. That's the most important thing is the feedback. And it was hard when I first started because I wanted to, hey, I like this, or great job. I did away with that. I just wrote down what I saw. And that's the most time consuming. You gotta remember, when we did it, there was no instrument. There was no tool. So with Microsoft Word, Excel, copy, paste, copy from the rubric, paste it there. And now with our new, it's 10 times faster. What we've learned thus far, the focus is on the process, not the tools. The state did roll out all these documents we could use and these trackers we can use, and we decided to kind of create our own and do some things. So done with fidelity, it's time consuming, but good teaching is harder than bad teaching. And it's no different for administrators. It is going to be time consuming. You're going to have to adjust your schedule. I used to do lunch duty every day. I haven't done it in 2 years. It's just I use that time to try to get feedback and do other things. I don't know, I can't sit down and write what I do every day. I'm not sure if you can either. People ask me, teachers, well, what do you do during your day? Not much, just put up my feet and wait for something to happen. I mean, your time is used and pulled in a lot of different directions, and you can't put more hours in the day. And sorry, Mr. Hunter, but I can't work 14 hours a day, especially with that little one at home. I guess I can't, he wants me to. But I can't work 25 hours a day, Mr. Hunter.
The next guy will.
Yeah. that goes back to working smarter, not harder. But it's going to take some time. You're going to have to do it. We modified the deal with tools. I already talked about that. And tracking indicators per teacher is essential. Again, if you have a tracker, a system, you don't have to worry about doing that. We didn't. So that's something that a light bulb kind of came on. Oh, wow, I'm hitting all these indicators every time I see a teacher. At the end of the year, I'm going to have to go back and look at all these indicators. I'm going to show you how I scored. And I'll show you the tracker that we use so you have a concrete example. There is some flaws with RISE. There's a big difference between a high 3 and a low 3, but that doesn't come out on the tracker. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. But there is some flaws with that, so we learned that going through. Feedback, feedback, feedback is the most important thing. Here's an Excel spreadsheet. I just took a little snippet. I think this may have been the first one I've ever done, so it's not like, wow, glowing or awesome or anything. But you know, I wrote down exactly what I was saying. I'm checking for understanding. The teacher was asking questions out loud to students. Students responded, whole class. Are you with me so far? Did I lose anyone yet? Are there any questions? Those are several things that she was asking throughout. She walked around the class during an independent practice. She cold called on some students. And I marked, you know, she used a variety of methods to check for understanding. So I try to get very specific feedback right to the teacher, and then I attach it to the indicator. And again, if you have a system to keep track of that, you'll be fine at the end of the day. But this is how we started. And that's the evidence that the teacher would get back. Now the teachers would have to go back and look. See, it doesn't say effective, highly effective. Teachers have to go back and look at that. And I kind of like that, because I force them to kind of go back, highlight it, and keep track of it. Here's the sample of short cycle assessment data. Here's a pretest. Here's the percentage of kids that were mastered on the pretest. After the teacher taught it, they did the post-test, and that's the percentage that we're seeing. I had a teacher last year retire. Not one of her students failed the I-step. Not one. And when she retired this summer, she continued sending me emails because she also did algebra and wanted to show me the comparison between her kids and how well they did in algebra and I-step. I mean, that's the way to go out. I mean, that's I tell you what. And I brag on the other teachers, said that's it. That's how I want to end my career, is doing the same thing. And this is that data that she was using.
The great thing about her is we hired 3 new math teachers at the junior high since she's in the last probably 3 or 4 years, and she's cloned all 3 of them. So Greensburg's going to be great in math at the junior high level because those kids just followed her like a mother duckling, and she taught them all of her tricks. And that's what you want to see at the building levels. And that collaboration time we built in there gave even more opportunity for that to happen. And I could have paid $1 million and had someone come into the building and teach math skills, and they wouldn't have done what she did.
If I didn't have collaboration built in, she wouldn't have had time to teach those others. She would have been in her classroom doing what. Now, the next step for me is trying to get all my teachers in each other's classrooms this year. At least one time to see what, because I know what's going on in great other teachers' classrooms. It's hard for a teacher to get in there, so I'm going to try to work out a schedule to do that. And let me wrap up here. This is the 3 things I tell the students and I tell the teachers. You know, do your best, do what's right, treat others the way you want to be treated. Always want to come back to that. Because again, the focus is on this, and test scores, and security, and the integrity of the test, and the focus needs to be on the kids. That's what the focus needs to be on. This other stuff will take care of itself. All right, it's just like when you want to win a state championship in whatever sport. You talk about the state championship the first day, that's your goal, and then you get to work. You don't talk about it again, you get back to the day-to-day thing. And the thing is, you can't wait till the end of the year to see, I hope they do well in I-step. Please, right? You have to do that short cycle assessments, you have to gauge that to see, hey, here's my strengths, here's the weaknesses. If we have weaknesses, how are we going to fix them at the end of the year? And that's what the focus needs to be on. RISE will take care of itself. It will. Okay? And that's perfect time for lunch. Yes?
How did you do the planning part of it? Did you just on the long observations?
Yes. On the planning part, there's a form that the teachers filled out. I wanted them to bring that to me during both of their post conferences, during the long observations, and that's what we used to score. I did receive some feedback. A couple people wanted me to bring up the PLC about setting the tone in the building. When we first created the PLC, we sat down and wanted to do some protocol. I knew exactly what I wanted out of the PLC as far as you know, I need my teachers to show up on time, I need them to be professional, treat each other with respect. And I knew it didn't do me any good to sit there and just dictate that. So that's when we used one of the quality tools, which was the affinity tool. And what I did is I had them create, you know, what are some things you'd like to see out of this PLC when you met as a group? And guess what? They all came up with the exact same thing. And then they took that Post-it and they put it up on the wall, and the one with the longest Post-its on it with the most number, that's what we went with. So that's how we came up with our protocol. So they had buy-in. So I typed that up, sent that back to them. So when we did have meetings, I could say, guys, remember, you created this. You said we need to show up on time for our PLCs. You need to be on task. You need to be respectful. Don't come in with reading a newspaper and those types of things. So that's one of the first things we did. And then when we actually had the PLCs meetings, I created the agenda. And I sent that out. That took me about a year. The first year, I continued to do that agenda. They would take notes during that time. I would try to move around during the collaboration to the different meetings that are going on. Also, Mrs. Williams also helped, along with my assistant principal. We tried to hit some different meetings just to sit in there and see what's going on. All of them would send back their minutes to me. And then what I would do with the minutes is, on Microsoft Word, you can go in there and you can add comments to the minutes. So I would add a comment, click it to the side, explain some things. If I wasn't there, present at that time for that meeting, to comment on some things and send it back to them. So that's kind of how it started. Now I have kind of pushed it to the teachers to create their own agendas. So now the department chairs, they create all the agendas for the departments. They appointed a person in charge of each grade level, and that changes every 9 weeks to a semester. That will change. Again, give different opportunities for leadership to step up. They would create their own agenda items. And then the committee meetings, I still create that agenda for the committees. But even some of that, I say, okay, what are some things you want to accomplish this year as a committee? What are some things that you have? And I kind of give them the power. So it did take a lot of time. As I was reviewing the minutes, that's where I was seeing, you know, we spent so much time talking about problems, not enough time talking about solutions. So that's to answer that question. That's kind of what we did with the PLC. Now I kind of want to show you on the screen here. This is the rubric that we used last year. This is RISE 1.0, right, before the 2.0, very similar. But this is how I was tracking the evidence from the teachers. So each teacher I would have, and again, if you have a tool, this will do this for you. But on Competency 2.1, these are all the times I saw those indicators, and I would highlight them. I use yellow and red to tell me the difference between first semester and second semester. You really don't have to do that. At the end of the year, they are what they are. I mean, it averages out. For example, you can't have a teacher be ineffective all first semester and second semester they're effective, and at the end of the year you say, well, okay, you're effective. Don't worry about first semester. You know, to me that's not a good scenario, because I don't want teachers to take the first semester off and then turn it on second semester. Most professionals won't do that. But at the same time, you're looking at the whole picture, the whole year. So, but that did help me, because it helped me know, you know, am I working with that teacher? If I'm seeing things ineffective, am I talking to them? Are they improving as the year goes? So this year I don't really have that capability with our tool to know the difference between first semester and second semester. But that's what that looks like that. At the end of the year, I have to go back, and for each competency, I have to decide a whole number. Is that a teacher of 4, 3, 2, or 1? This one's pretty easy, right? Because all my indicators I've selected so far is under 3. That was easy to score. Now I get here, 2.2. I've seen some indicators over here. It's hard to see on this, but there's a number behind here. That means I've seen that indicator more than once, and I'll put a number behind it how many times I've seen that. There. Again, I have to decide, is that a teacher a 3 or a 2 on that competency? I can't give a 2.5, 2.4. I have to decide a whole number. And this is where some of the issues comes in when you guys do the scoring at the very end. But I have to use my professional judgment, meeting with that teacher and deciding what that teacher is at the end of the year. There's some other ones? Yes.
On that, I'm assuming that when you have the conference with the teacher, these are your observations.
Correct.
And do you then, let's say they were able to explain something that you said, oh, that makes sense. You did observe it, but you weren't really clear what you're observing, so you go in and you make an adjustment. I'm assuming what we're looking at now is that's already happened, that if you thought it was a 2, but now really is at a 3 level because you went in and changed them. Okay.
Correct.
Because I know there's other evidence they can bring, but that's different on a different
Absolutely.
piece.
Now, The indicators might not change. That's what I saw, that's what I witnessed, but if they bring in evidence, and it did happen, we have those professional conversations.
Okay.
That's where I use my professional, where do I rank them at the end of the year.
So then you can actually put some more highlights after that conference.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, make any notes or anything you want to do about that. But I did not change the score. I did not change what I witnessed and what I saw. And those indicators, again, that's more evidence that will help me with that.
Sure.
But in the year, use that professional judgment. On the short observations, there's no sit down face to face most of the time. I email them the results, they look it over. If they have questions, they can come to me. If I have questions, I may go to them. Or if I have concerns, I may go to them. But most of the time, there's not going to be a sit down face to face after. You do it as you wish. With every teacher 5 times, and then having to have a meeting after all 5 of those, too much, in my opinion. But you will have a face-to-face when you do your post-observation, first semester and second semester. Also, RISE also recommends we do mid-year evaluation. We didn't do that last year. We are doing that this year. And that mid-year is we're going to say, here's where you're at thus far. Here's the indicators I've seen thus far. It's a good way for you to take a look at. And you'll see one here. I didn't see too many of those. Okay, so when I go into a classroom, I look for all the indicators. I don't go in saying, okay, I'm just going to look just for 2.1 and 2.3 this time. I don't. I go in and look for all of them. And I don't know which ones I'm going to see. I go in and I document. I start typing, and then once I go back to my office, I sit down, then I'm able to pick this evidence. Okay, this goes with this indicator. It's tough when you begin. It's like anything else. As the year goes on, you get real used to those indicators, and it will get much easier. That will get easier the second year, even second semester. You'll find out some indicators are in different spots. Engagement, I kept on putting 3/4 or more students are engaged. They call that an effective indicator. To me, I think it should be more than 3/4 of kids are engaged to be effective. But when you find the indicator all kids are engaged, that's under 2.7. It's not even under 2.3. So those little things you'll find out as you start using it and as you start working with it. But as you can see here, now maybe I've done 3 observations and I've realized I haven't seen 2.5 a whole lot. Then I can maybe make myself a note when I go in there. I'm going to really specifically look for that one, but again, I'm going to try to look for them all. Because to me, it's not fair if I go in and see 2.4 and the teacher's not doing a very good job, and I say, well, I'm not going to see that again until, my 4th observation. To me, that's not fair to that teacher. So I want to be able to go in and try to see everything. And you can see a lot in 10 minutes. You can see quite a bit in 10 minutes. At first, I didn't. You saw my first observation, very short, but you can see a lot once you get in. So just show you some examples, just going through here. Here's how I document, and here's 2.8, yellow, first semester. I saw some things right away that was ineffective. And I heard discussions with TNTP about this. About, am I going to have an ineffective teacher at the end of the school year? And I told them I'm not going to wait till the end of the school year and tell them that they're ineffective. If I see something that's ineffective, we're going to address that immediately. I'm going to bring in that teacher, we're going to have conversations. Maybe that teacher will bring some data, information that I wasn't aware of at the time. And that's good to know. But we will address that. And you can see second semester, they really improved. They really improved. Again, I still have to decide at the end of the day, are they a 3, are they a 2, or are they a 1? And that's going to be your guys' decision. I can't tell you where you should mark the teacher. Those are the conversations you're going to have. And I would highly recommend that if there's 2 people in your building, 2 administrators, and you really get together and collaborate on this. You really decide where people are going to go. And that's going to help because you want to have that consistency.
What did the teacher actually get back from this walkthroughs or your own observations?
The feedback, that sheet that I showed you, that's what they got back. And then this is what I recommend that they did on their end, because this is what I was doing. They take that and they highlight it throughout the year. So at the end of the year, again, there's no surprises. There's no teacher who says, well, how come I'm not highly effective on 2.9? Well, I can pull out the evidence. Here's why. Because all the indicators pointed other places. And then what we had was a tracker. I'm going to show you this. Here's an example of one. So when you go through here, 2.1 through 2.5, and I'm going to skip that to a second. I'm going to show you how we were able to come up with those scores, and then Sarah will kind of show you the tool that we use. But again, when you go through here, you have to mark whether they're 1, 2, 3, or 4. There's no 2.5 or anything else like that. It has to be a whole number. Once you click that, this will come up. Now, once I did all these for domain 1, I have to give a score down here. And again, that score is a whole number. It's not a 3.2 or anything else. So as administrators, you guys need to have conversations. How many effectives need to be here before that teacher, or how many highly effectives need to be here before that teacher is highly effective? It's easy if they're all highly effective. It's easy to mark them highly effective. Let's say they're highly effective in all but 1. Is that teacher still highly effective? In my opinion, I think it can be highly effective and be effective in 1. How about 2? Yeah, that's the 3. I'd say no, definitely have the 2. Well, it depends. Those are conversations that you guys are just going to have so that way you're consistent. Because again, you have to give a whole number. And the same thing as you scroll down here, when you get 9 different competencies in domain 2, that's when you're really going to have to decide. Can you be improvement necessary in one area? Or how many areas do you have to be improvement necessary until you're marked improvement necessary? Personally, I believe some of these should be weighted. I believe some of these are greater than others. But the TNTP and the state, no, they're all the same. They're all weighted the same. So again, as administrators, at the end of the year, whatever data that you use, you're going to have to come up and you're going to have to make a decision. And this is where highly effective comes in at. Because we have some teachers who do some highly effective things. But how many things here must they be highly effective in before they're highly effective down here? And again, that's where we got back to. I think you can be highly effective in all but 1 and still be highly effective. 2, that's the gray area. Kind of depends. So, but those are conversations. And this is the difference I was telling you earlier. This is the difference between a high 3 and a low 3. But it doesn't ever come out in the score. Because let's say you have several 3s up here. And 2, 3, maybe even say 4 highly effectives. The others are effective. To me, a teacher would be effective. They got some highly effective skills, but they're an effective teacher. And then another teacher is all 3s, but maybe 1 or 2 improvement necessary. To me, those are 2 different teachers. But guess what? Same score at the end. They both get 3s. Now, what may wash all this out, which is what we didn't have this year, which you guys will, is the growth model data, the school-wide learning, and the SLO, which is these scores over here. Last year, 100% rubric for the pilot schools. But they do want us to go back and enter the data for this year, so we went back and entered the SLO data, which is coming up over here. This shows 1.43 just because we don't have any data here yet. We're still waiting from the state and the growth model and the school-wide, and those are the percentages. And then that will come up down here. That will tell you where the teachers are at. I'm not sure what the state's going to provide for all schools. They provided this for us because we were a pilot school. This is how we scored at the end of the year. Okay, so I don't know what tool is going to be out there for everybody else. But there needs to be something where you collect all that data, you look at all those indicators, you can give a score for each area, for each domain, and you do the percentages over here.
Can I interrupt?
Please.
And that's important at the central office level, because then we can look to see how each of the administrators rank their teachers compared to their growth model information that's going to come out, and were they accurate, and say, you know, if we've got a principal that says, you know, according to the rubric, they're all effective and highly effective, yet we get negative impact, or we get, you know, the school-wide letter grade that's showing that we're not necessary, we've got to make sure that we then coach that principal up to do a better job of evidence collecting and scoring. And then it also helps in the fact that I'm writing the Title II Part A grant, and it's all on professional development, and I see that a lot of our teachers are in need of, you know, help with 2.5 or classroom management or engagement. I can make sure that the PD that I schedule into the Title II grant matches the needs of that, not just the global goals that we put on a school improvement plan. So that's kind of how all that information then feeds back to central office, so we can make more global decisions for the district.
And on the evaluation instrument, or the observation instrument that we're using, I'll be able as superintendent to track all of that information from each one of the principals. And I can tell how many observations they've done and what rating each one of the principals gave their teachers within their building. So if I see, and the assistants in the building too, so if like assistants rating everybody 3s and 4s and principals rating everybody 2s or vice versa, I at least need to have a conversation with the administrators in that building to see why there's such a variance, just because maybe of the person who's doing the observations. Because again, like I told you before, one of the things that I have to really try to ensure with those administrators is that they're all as consistent as possible. That's why I think it's important, even though we've been through this process multiple times, we'll continue doing some things together as a group of administrators in working on consistency and doing some short observations together. My principals earlier in the year, Dave was part of this, they just on their own took it to where they went to some classrooms, talked to some teachers, went in as a group of administrators in one of our classrooms and observed a teacher. All of them did the tracking with it, came back out and talked about it, why they would rate them here or there or wherever. And that's what you want to see on the part of your administrators. But the professional opinion that's going to come in there is you as a building principal. I think the building principals have 5 times the job that any classroom teacher has in this process. That's for sure. And your professional judgment is very, very important.
One thing that I learned that when you go through the indicators, you're marking them as you go, reflecting them. For a teacher to get a 4 or 3 or 2 or 1, those seem to be indicators that continue to come up. Not, remember I showed you the highlights. Just because I marked there one time doesn't mean that teacher should be there. So you may see, well, why did you give that teacher a 3 when they had a couple 4s and a couple 2s? Well, that could maybe because I've only seen it one time. And one time means, guess what? One class period in a whole year. So what you want to see is those indicators continuing to come up multiple times where you're comfortable. That's why, reality, it is tough to get 4s. It is tough to get highly effective there because you got to get highly effective in most of those categories. Yes?
Tom, any issues with the Teacher Association on anything that might help us?
Well, one of the things is, quite honestly, we probably don't deal too much with realities that some of you might. We have a real good relationship with our teachers. And, we've, as I said, we've communicated. Last year was a no-risk year for them. So maybe some of that may be a little bit different this year. But so far, we haven't had any problems with it because we've been very fair. And I know they've had some tough conversations with some teachers. But it's just like, if I've got you rated as needs improvement, and I've got this evidence here to show that, then please show me something that's going to change my mind. And we've had that discussion as administrators. If they come in and they can show you some things, hey, you just happened on the 5 times you saw me, you didn't see this, but I'm really doing this, and here's examples of it, then I think as an administrator, you've got to take that into consideration. So far, not really any. I don't know that we've had one concern from the Teachers Association.
Well, our biggest, I guess, concern that we've heard is just the consistency. And we're trying to do our best, but we still have a human factor involved in that.
I think one of the things that will help with that is our teachers and some of our lead teachers and some of our union people we've involved in it, they know we get together. We make it very public that we get together every Wednesday. We've made it very public that we've done some of these scenarios together as far as doing the observations. We let them do some observations in their teachers' meetings at the building level so they can see how the process works. And I think just them knowing as much as they know about the process gives them a little bit more confidence. And maybe Sarah, you might want to say something about that.
Well, I leaned over earlier and told Dave, you're supposedly the harder one to do the evaluations. That was the chatter last year, and I think if you have multiple administrators doing the evaluation, then it's going to happen. You're going to have people who have a chip on their shoulder, and I think that's the negativity that can arise with the RISE evaluation, that competitiveness, that maybe closing off and not wanting to share, and that's something that's so important to really front load with the PLCs is that we've got to come together. You need to really make it public that your administrators are getting together. Dave approved my SLO last year, and it was approved on the first time, so this time I send it in, and Deb is sending it back to me. I think I'm on my 6th or 7th time just redoing it and tweaking it. And she's made it very clear that that's not just her, that's she and Dave are both looking at it. It's a different year this year. This year is more difficult. This year is more difficult, I think, because we know a lot more. Last year was no stakes, so we could say this many kids, and we really didn't know what that meant. Now we can look back on that and learn from it. And so I think that transparency of Dave and Deb are both looking at this and really making sure that you have some great lead teachers that are willing to come back with that information. We had a department meeting and we kind of got a little frustrated with RISE and well, this and this and this. And as a lead teacher, I have to be willing to say, you know what, we're all learning and we're all kind of adjusting and growing, and we can ask questions, but all as teachers we can do is put that information out and do our best and have faith in our administrators and work with our administrators as a team to have that communication. Again, communicate. Dave, I only had 6 of my kids pass. I know I said 8, but take a look at this one kid. This is what happened with this one kid. It's all about that transparency and that communication and making sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone knows that we're all sharing information and we're all learning as we go. Sometimes we all feel like the DOE changes the rules as we're playing the game. Mid-game, oh, nope, it's this, and we can get frustrated with it, or we can say, you know, okay, well, I'm going to play by these rules today, and I'm going to roll with it. And you have to have those lead teachers that are going to be willing to go back to your group and say, this is the way it is now. That way it's not always the administrators who are saying, well, here it is, here it is, here it is. As a teacher, I can say, hey guys, I'm sorry, but this is what's expected of us now. We have to set a higher goal. They want us to push a little harder. So just the communication factor.
Steve, one of the other things, we tried at the beginning of last year to try, we thought, well, maybe we'll try this in one of the buildings. And one of the buildings decided that the administrative staff would evaluate each person, meaning you'll get 3 from me, 2 from him, and then we'll combine them together to get, doesn't work at all. And we found that
That was us, yeah, we tried it. Because we thought, same thing, it'd be more, you know, teachers would be able to do it. But we didn't have a tracking system. We didn't have a data, you saw the hand. So we thought, that's gonna be impossible. We're gonna have to sit down after everyone and share. With the system, a new data tracking, you may be able to. But what we're gonna do is at the end of the year, we're gonna switch. So I have half the teachers, she has half. Next year, we'll switch it and have half. And the funny thing is, Sarah doesn't know, I had a teacher tell me the same thing, but the opposite. They said, Dave, they'd rather have you because you're easier, right? She heard just the opposite, so you'll get that.
Well, and it does come down to, you know, you came in on this day and we were doing this, and, you know, the teachers have to be willing to come to you and say, and to communicate that, not go back to their room and pout when they get their email back with their feedback, but they have to be willing to go and you know, in a teamwork environment say, oh, but we, you know, right after you left, we started doing this and it went really well. Can you come back tomorrow and observe me again? You have to be willing to speak up and, you know, fight for, you know, what you know that you're doing in the classroom, as opposed to getting that chip on your shoulder. I think that's what's going to divide some of the schools, you know, feeling like you're being mistreated or feeling like you're not getting a fair observation. Go in and have that communication and discuss those things instead of just keeping it all to yourself.
You hit the nail on the head though, Tom. If you rate somebody ineffective, needs improvement, and you've got the data, then it's cut and dry. But if you don't, then we got problems. As administrators, superintendents, we're going to have a problem on our hands dealing with it. I think that's the key to the whole thing.
And I think as administrators, and most of you are, you guys are really going to have to work together as a group and within your corporation. Don't hide things from one another. You know, if you got something that's working, it's your duty to share it with everybody in your corporation. We've talked a lot about that. You know, our administrators are at different levels. I've got one administrator who's been an administrator for 38 years. I've got another one who's been an administrator for 2 years. It's a pretty big gap there. And, you know, I won't tell you which one's better than the other. But, you know, we're not all the same by any means, and a lot of different experiences. But we have to have the teachers perceive that everybody's competent in doing these observations, making that final evaluation. There may be some differences, but they just have to believe that they're competent in what they're doing, and also make sure that they understand that we're we're honest enough among each other that if I did make a mistake in doing your observation or even your final evaluation, and I did miss a lot of things, you got to make them feel like they can come in and sit down with you as the administrator and give you some evidence to say, hey, you know, here's some things, really good things I'm doing that show that I'm not really weak in this area. It may have been weak of 2 days that you came in, but that's really maybe one of my strengths, because you can miss something. There's nothing perfect about this process. But again, it has the ability to really make everyone in the building concentrate on the instruction. I think that's the whole key.
One of the kickers, and I don't know how much conversations you guys had, we've had quite a bit and continues to come up, is the professionalism down there at the bottom. You don't get any points for it, but you lose an entire point if you don't get it. That really hit home with our teachers as we're sitting down, going over the rubric, because you saw how much work and effort goes into scoring all those at the end of the day. And then there's their score there. And I'm not even talking about the SLOs and things yet. And then that's all that work got 2.25. But if you didn't meet one of these, that's a 1.25. I mean, that's when it hits home. All that work just to get 4 points and 1 point can be taken away because you don't meet the professionalism. So, and I know that's a whole different animal. I don't want to shake
one of the other big thing that you're going to have there is attendance. That's the biggest issue that comes up there in professionalism. And I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different administrators about this, and they're like, well, our contract says that they can miss 13 days. Guess what? They can miss 13 days. If you can't change that contract, I don't think legally you have a foot to stand on to count one of your teachers down in that area for attendance if they don't miss any more than 13 days. So, you know, I think there's some points whether you like it or you don't like it, that's the way it is. And until that, we tried to talk to TNTP to make each one of those 25% in there. That makes a lot more sense. Then I've got a lot greater tendency maybe to ding you on one of those things a little bit to get your attention for improvement, to taking a whole point off. Steve?
I was just going to ask, put you on the spot, but did you take any points off?
Nope. I'm not going to be the first guy to do that.
We kicked this around in our last couple of meetings, and I was just
Sure. And if it was 0.25, I'd be more likely to pull that trigger and have those conversations. The whole point, I'm gonna let somebody else fight that battle and let me know how it turns out.
But I think, Steve, we will have that conversation on Steve. I mean, if we really feel like we have evidence to prove that we need to take a point off, we're going to take a point off. But I think you know, and Greensburg's not any different than your corporations. Our people are professionals for the most part. I mean, they may do something every once in a while when you question what they were thinking, but they're professionals.
So at the end of the year, how many people were rated effective or highly effective?
Out of the 150 that we had, what did we have? 145?
Okay.
And you know, really, when you look at it and go down through it from the perspective of a principal or the superintendent, probably we could have maybe been in the 135 range. But I would say at least 135 out of our 155. When you looked at what's going on in the classroom, they are effective. If they're not, then why are our test scores in the high 80s and 90s? You know, we're not 43%. So, you know, it's easy to be overcritical and say, well, you know, if we had everybody effective and highly effective, we'd be in the 80s and 90s. We are. So, I mean, TNTP, we had a little bit of a disagreement on that because they felt like our number should have been a little bit higher. And again, remember, they would have been a little bit higher. Maybe if we would have had some people retiring, there could have been a possibility of some of them being judged a little bit differently. But I'm not having that conversation with those people as they're leaving Greensburg Schools. And most of those people were very, very good teachers for us for 30 plus years. So.
And that was based 100% on the rubric, too. No growth model, no anything else. So.
And most teachers are probably going to score better on the rubric maybe than, in particular, the growth model could really be a concern.
And you know, the elementary and the junior high, we've been 8 schools the last about 2 years, exemplary schools, so we should have some up there. And we've got some discussion about the ineffective teacher at the end of the year. And I just keep on fighting back, but I'm not going to wait till the end of the year. Now, maybe if they're that bad, and I did a terrible job hiring, but if they're that bad and I can't improve them at all at the end of the year, then they're ineffective. And we'll move on and do what we need to do.
If we have an ineffective teacher after their first year, they will be released that year. There won't be a second year. We've had that discussion. If they're ineffective after their first year, they will go into an improvement plan. We will release them after their first year.
And if you look at RISE, it's real hard to get highly effective. Same way at the bottom. You know, most of them are in the between. So, I want to start. Sarah thinks she's going to get out of here without talking a whole lot today, so I'm going to try to get the rest of the time to her. I want to brought up her domains 1 and 3. This is the document that she created. It's just an Excel document she shared with all the other teachers. And they went through and added things that they were doing in these domains. Domains, hold 1 second before. And then they turned that in after the first post-observation. So I have to take a look at that first semester. It's not really due till the end, until the end of the school year for me to take a look at it. Totally, but I want to look at it after the first observation. There's so much stuff on there. What we decided as an administrative team is that we're going to ask them to bring 2 examples. Now they don't know which ones I'm going to ask for, so they turn it in. So I take a look at it and I said, let's see, Sarah, why don't you bring your unit assessments to me, your kitty pre-test and post-test. You put that on there. Why don't you bring that to me and share it? So I'll ask for 2 pieces of evidence, and then 1 if they want to bring something that I didn't ask for. So if there's something the teachers are working on, they're excited about, and they want to share that, bring that with you too. So they don't know which ones I'm going to ask for, because you can't, the first time we did this, I had a teacher, she's a great teacher, 97% pass rate on the math. She brings me a binder this big. Says, all right, what do you want to see, Dave? And I'm like, oh, well, no, this is just 1 teacher. I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So we had, okay, how are we going to do this? They're collecting it, they're doing a great job with it, they need to continue doing that. If I have to make them prove to me that they're doing something on there, you got to have it. That's what I tell teachers. That's why I hate you got to document it. You have to. Principals, guess what? You have to document it. We have to write our own SLOs. But so they bring that to me. That's how I sit down and decide, are they 1, 2, 3, or 4 on domains 1 and 3. And what do our teachers do? They email this out. Even the ones that are already listed. Now here's what we found out. Some teachers are copying and pasting and said they were doing it, and we called them on it. Now tell me how about this? Well, I'm not doing that yet. Well, then get it off there. Right? Remove that. Those things are going to happen, but I don't mind them sharing. They need to collaborate. And I hope that continues. I don't want teachers to hold on to things. I'm not going to share it. And we're really working hard that doesn't happen. So, the forward to
one of the nice things about this is it just put all of the indicators right there for me, and pretty much what I did, I think these domains we thought were more overwhelming than the second domain. I teach, I have lesson plans, that's what I have been trained to do. I spent 4 years in college doing that. But how do I prove that I'm doing all of these other things? I think especially when you get into the third domain. The third domain
Sure.
is all about school culture and collaborating collaborating with peers, seeking professional development skills. That gets overwhelming, and we all do these things, but I think it gets lost in the shuffle. My sister just started her 2nd year teaching up in Zionsville, and I was emailing her templates, write everything down, because we take it for granted. I'm just doing this because I care about my school, I'm doing this because I care about my students, but now it's all about documentation. And so one of the things that I did was I just started looking at what they listed, what the DOE, what RISE listed as highly effective or effective teaching in these categories, and then I started thinking about the things that I already did. Now, it also was good because I started thinking too, okay, I don't really have a lot in this category. What are some of the things that are listed as highly effective and effective that I can start doing? And I think if we start using the RISE rubric, just like we would expect students to use a rubric in our classrooms, then your teachers are going to feel a lot more at ease with it. What are they going to be grading me on? I'm going to make sure I'm doing those things. This is my 8th year teaching, and I feel like I'm a really good teacher. I feel like I really connect with kids. I feel like I hit my content area. But it's not about that anymore. It's not about just being able to sit back and say, I'm really good at what I do. Now I've got to be able to prove it. And I might have to change some of the things I do. And it might be something that I've done every single year, and I've done it when I taught in Missouri, and I did it when I taught at Shelbyville, but now it's a whole new ballgame. We're getting those new rules from the DOE, and we have to roll with that. We can't just kind of stick with, I've always done it this way. And that's hard. We have technology being thrown at us, and I've told my kids, we have my big campus, and it's like Facebook. And I said, guys, I really want to just hand you a worksheet, and have you fill it out and turn it back into me, and I can grade it with my red pen and record the grade in the grade book. And now all of a sudden all their assignments are online. And that's a change, and it pushes our comfort level, just like the RISE evaluation is going to push a lot of your quality teachers' comfort levels. But I think if they use the rubric just like we would expect a student to, it's going to ease their stress a little bit. I put together a few things, and I didn't realize there would be so many people here. I'm a little overwhelmed with my small stack of papers. But my email address is at the bottom, so if you're looking at some of the things and you would like to share them with some of your teachers, feel free to email me, and I can email you a digital copy. So there's one per table. I apologize. I was expecting a handful of people to speak to, not quite table full. And these are just some things that I use in my classroom, and I think it helps collect the data efficiently. It helps put all that data in a way that I can give it to Dave, I can give it to Deb. And it helps me see all of that. One of the things that's in there is pretty basic. It's a sheet that I use to write down when I call parents and what I'm calling them about and the date that I'm calling them. If I go to a sporting event, I'm writing that down. And these are basic. It's a Word document. It's a table. It's nothing fancy. But I think there are things that some of your teachers aren't thinking about until they get to this point when they're filling out their domain 3 and their domain 1, and they're going, well, I know I was at some basketball games, and I know I was at this, and I know I chaperoned that, and they don't have that information. And, you know, it's a shame when some of those teachers who are really involved get dinged on their evaluations. They can't tell you what date it was. And so that's one of the things that I've learned from last year is that's in my binder before I even pick up the phone to call a parent or to send a little postcard home or anything like that. I'm opening up my binder and I'm just jotting it down. And I think if you have it all streamlined and you have it in one place, it's all ready to go. Like that teacher that has the big thick binder, she does. She keeps it on her desk, and you know, if there's a parent to call, she opens it up. If she's helping somebody out with a supervision, she's jotting it down. And just encourage your teachers to really keep track of all of those things that they do, even if it's out of the goodness of their heart and they're picking up somebody's extra duty that they can't do because they have softball practice for their child. They need to write it down, and that's part of improving school culture in that way. One of the things that I did want to start with is I teach across the hall from a teacher who was actually my language teacher when I was in 8th grade. And she's wonderful, and you know, she's maybe getting close to retirement age, and she could definitely be one of those teachers that's like, oh, Rise is coming along, I'm done, I'm out of here. And she's probably one of the hardest working teachers in making sure that she is doing domain 1 and domain 3, and she's recording everything and keeping everything up to date. And one of the comments that she made about this whole process, especially with the SLOs and the bucket kids, we've been calling them buckets for a year and it just stuck. I know it's not nice, but there are bucket kids.
That was TNTP's name for
TNTP, they said the bucket. We were bucketing our kids. Our bottom bucket. You know, her comment last year when all this was coming on, we were having all these extra things tossed at us, was what harm is it if we're focusing on this one group and trying to get them to improve? What's the harm in really pushing all of our teachers to take a look at these kids? And so it's just something to take back to your teachers. You know, I use the example in our department meetings as triage. If I'm walking into an emergency, I'm going to get to those people that I can help first. It's not that I'm not going to help all the other ones, but I'm really going to focus on this group, this bucket, and really do everything I can to get them up to where they need to be. With that being said, one of the things that's in the packet, and I was thankfully able to pull it up, this is my bucket, and I blacked out the kids. Now this bucket, this spreadsheet will be added to throughout the year, so I'll have my Acuity A data, I'll have my Acuity B data, and I'll have my Acuity C data. And one of the things that I really like about this, and we definitely stress in our language department, is the color coding. Now Tammy brought up red, yellow, and green. We take it a little bit further. So we have red, those are our danger kids. They were 11 or more points away from passing. Yellow, these are our bubble kids, and especially in the language department, we really focus on those bubble kids. Those bubble kids can make or break us. A kid that passed by 2 points was great that last year because they passed, but if they don't pass for me, then that looks bad for me. So I want to make sure those yellow kids are sitting right up in front of the class. I want to make sure that I'm having as much interaction with them as possible. The green kids pass by 11 or more. So that bubble, I look at 10 above and 10 below. I really want to look at those kids that I can really focus all of my triage energy on. Green is passing, and then blue is pass plus. Now, I don't ever want to imply that I'm not giving attention to any one of these kids, but it's a really nice way. I want to have data that's accessible, that's easy to recognize, and that's useful. All right, I think when we start collecting data, when we have short cycle assessments, when we have acuity, when we have ISTEP and STAR and all these other things, it can get really overwhelming. And so one of the important things for your teachers is finding the data that really is useful to them, that gives them some good feedback, and what they're going to be able to work with the best. The color coding allows me to see improvements, so I want to see some of those yellow kids, especially when we take acuity A, B, and C. I want to see them move from yellow, maybe yellow again, green, green, blue. I want to see them move up the color spectrum. If they're not, that gives me a really quick, clear idea of where they're headed. So the color coding is something that I know really helps our language department, helps the math department, just a quick referral of how that student is doing. One of the things in the packet, and I don't have a digital copy, I apologize. It's in the packet, and it's called GJHS Students on Track. Your teachers are going to have a lot of data, and it's so important to be tracking the data and using the data in the classrooms. And one of the things that I believe wholeheartedly in is putting the data in the hands of the students as well. So each of my students have a red literature data sheet and a blue language data sheet. They get their monthly grades. I'll collect the sheets, I'll put in their monthly grades so they can see any increases, any decreases, and I can see that as well. A B could be an 89, it could be an 87, it could be an 82, and I want to catch on to that before it gets to a C. I want to catch on to that as they're moving up to an A and celebrate those successes. They get a quarterly grade, they get a semester grade. One of the things that I think is really important if you're in an acuity school is that your kids understand what their acuity numbers mean. When we first started with acuity, when I was back at Shelbyville, the score popped up and the teachers, we kind of shrugged our shoulders and we were like, 16 out of 32, great, that's failing. I'm not a math major, but I can do that. And then acuity tells us, no, a 16 out of 32, they're predicted to pass ISTEP. And so we have all these students who are looking at these scores, and I know my 8th graders are kind of like, we're not really sure what that number means. And I want them to understand. I want them to feel that pride when they get to that predicted to pass. I want them to understand kind of where they should be. And so we also have ISTEP scores. So before we take acuity A in October, they're going to look at their past ISTEP score. They're going to set a goal for their acuity. So they're being held accountable too. You know, Dave and Tom and Deb do a lot for the teachers to have buy-in to all of the data collection and making decisions based on data. I want the students to have just as much buy-in. I don't want that number for ISTEP just to be something that gets mailed home to them and their parents may or may not share it with them. I don't want the acuity score to be something that just shows up on the screen. I want the students to know that that number could be a determining factor on if they're in remedial reading. It could be a determining factor if they're in this English class when they get to high school or that English class. I want them to know how important some of those numbers are. That way when we go down to take acuity, they're really trying and they're showing me what they know. So putting the data in the hands of the students is one of the things that's in there. And I think it's really important for complete school buy-in. I was jotting down some notes as people were talking. Some of the complaints about the RISE rubric, I know at my school, we're looking at the rubric and it really kind of looks like to get highly effective, your principal needs to walk into an enriched class only. If they were walking into an enriched class, I'd be highly effective every single time. You know, some of the things on that are like, all students are highly engaged and enthusiastic about learning. And when you're talking about participles and gerunds and infinitive phrases in language class, that's really hard sometimes to make that exciting and fun. And so the thing to just encourage, I think, is, again, changing your strategy, changing your tactic. We've moved away from teaching language out of the grammar book to teaching it in the context of writing, giving the writing back to them, find your infinitives, find your participles, highlight it. You know, we've really had to start changing what we do so that we can hit that mark. You know, sitting in our rooms and complaining about the RISE rubric and it's not fair isn't going to do me any good when it comes time for my evaluation. I actually have to go in and make some changes to what I'm doing. You know, and I just told a teacher this the other day, I think we have to start avoiding that gut feeling of, well, I'm a good teacher, I should get highly effective. And I just was telling Dave at lunch, I've been teaching 8 years. I think it would be very odd if I were highly effective every single year. That would, I mean, does that mean that I don't have anything else to learn, any more growing to do as a teacher? And would I love highly effective? Absolutely. That would be a huge source of pride. I think all of your teachers should be striving for that highly effective. But at a certain point, we have to be proud of that effective. I'm a good teacher. I'm doing what I should be doing. And I need to set goals to help myself continue to grow as a teacher and continue to get better in my craft.
Sarah, I want to interject something, one thing here. We as a corporation, we're still under our old contract through this year. But one of the things that I've shared with our teachers from the beginning is once we adopt a compensation model, we're not going to differentiate and pay from effective to highly effective. Some people don't agree with that. That's their choice. We've had a lot of conversation about that. I think the number of highly effective teachers you have are probably pretty small in most schools. The number of effective teachers you have are large, and the separation there is very minimal sometimes between a highly effective teacher and an effective teacher. Your effective teacher, they're not going to be highly effective because you're going to pay them $300 more or $3,000 more. There's things that separate the effective teacher from the highly effective teacher that I don't think are going to be motivated by money. But at the same point, I don't want my effective teachers to feel degraded because a highly effective teacher is getting a $5,000 raise and they're getting a $500 raise. And I know in some corporations it's almost going to be that way. But we feel in Greensburg, my goal as superintendent is to put an effective teacher in every single classroom. And that I want those highly effective teachers to use what they're doing that makes them highly effective and share those things with our effective teachers to try to raise everybody up to the highest level we can get. Some people may not ever be highly effective, but they may teach for 30 years and be a very effective teacher. I don't think there should be a great differentiation in pay between those two. So I think that alleviates a little bit of the concern that some of our teachers have with the highly effective and effective rating.
Well, and I agree with the money aspect, but I think it's kind of like a pride thing too. You know, it's that, gosh, I come in here at 5 and I'm here until 6 and I'm doing all this and I coach this and I do this and I do this. And I think when you look at the rubric and you see all of the things that you have to do, it really puts things in perspective, and that goes back to making sure that you're using the rubric. And, you know, we have to adjust that thought process. I think last year, you know, everything I did, I was trying to get to that highly effective part, and it was stressful. I mean, the day before my big scheduled observation, I was at school at 10 o'clock just going over my lesson plan. Do I have everything ready to go? And like Dave said, that's not what it should be about. It should be him walking in my classroom and just seeing what I do on a daily basis. And so we really have to change the mindset of, you know, effective is a great teacher. Effective, you're doing everything that you should be doing for kids.
And many highly effective teachers didn't want to be recognized. They asked me, is this going to be public, or are other people going to know? Because they were afraid other teachers will take a point. And the thing, the culture we're trying to develop in our school is, guys, we're all highly effective in some areas. And as a principal, I know more than ever before what teacher is excellent at checking for understanding, which one's excellent at modifying, which one's excellent at engagement. And they may not be a highly effective teacher because they didn't hit all those, but I can send teachers to certain different classrooms and we can get each other's classrooms, say, I want you to go in this classroom, look for checking and understanding, look for rigor in this classroom. And I think that's what builds that you know, we're all professionals and we're all great at some things and we all need improvement in others. And through RISE, at least we can pinpoint exactly what those are. And hopefully we can have highly effective strategies going on in all the classrooms. Now, the state probably wouldn't be happy with that if we had all highly effective teachers in it. But you know what? It's what's best for kids. And that's what I always come back to. Where they rate, where they rate. That's what's best for kids.
And we've been really lucky, like in our department, we really have that teamwork mentality where we are emailing things out. You know, when we get an SLO event, we're emailing it out to everybody. When we come up with some ideas of things for that domain 1 and that domain 3, we're emailing it out because you know what? I know you're doing the exact same things that I'm doing. I've already jotted them down. Take what you're doing and use this. In our department meetings, once a week, we go through a best practice strategy. And I was telling Tom that there's a brand new teacher at our school who's doing a fluency activity that I'd never even considered doing for some of my low readers. And so that sharing is what is so important in making sure that we all can get up to the same level instead of that competitive nature. One of the other things in terms of data, we've just, as a language department and literature department, we've just started doing the short cycle assessments, and it was a difficult task. Our math department had been doing it for a year or two, and theirs was amazing. They have it down to a science of bell work quiz. They can show you their data. That was the example that Dave used earlier, where it was 4%, it jumps up to 92%. They do an amazing job with it. And one of the things that we struggled with as a language department is, you know, they can substitute numbers in there and we can't. And so we really had to go back through and think about what we wanted our students to know and how we were going to test it in a streamlined way. Your teachers are going to have a lot of data that they're going to have to look at, and Matt Slavin, my co-teacher, and I spent a lot of time over the summer really making sure that we were getting good data, but we weren't getting data that was going to take us the whole week to compile. You know, if we're overwhelmed with data, if we're overwhelmed with everything else, we're not going to be able to go in the classroom and be the best teacher that we can be. The data sheet is also in the packet as well. We listed the unit that we were working on, we listed the standards, we had the pre-test number. We work on that standard, that one standard, all week long in bell work, just a quick little review. And for language and literature, that works. You know, they've been learning about theme in 6th grade and in 7th grade. When they get to me, they should have a basic idea. They've been learning about point of view for the last 2 years. They've been learning about nouns and parts of speech for the last 2 years. It should be a review. It should be a little refresh. I know they might not remember it very well, but they've learned it, right? My kids always come into my room and they have no idea what a thesis statement is. We've never heard of this before. And so then we have the dates that we did the remediation and then the final percentage, and that's a little quiz on Friday, 4 or 5 questions. Did you get to the percentage of mastery or not? If not, we do it again next week. And it's quick. It's not meant to take a lot of time out of the big picture of instructional time. And the last page in there, and I don't think I have it in my original, the last page of the packet shows one of the copies of mine. And there was one standard where, boy, it was week after week we weren't getting it. And so I finally made an executive decision. I think I drew an arrow down to the next section. We're going to hit it again, but we're going to take a little break from it. I, as a teacher, need to rethink how I'm teaching this particular standard. I need to modify what I'm doing instead of just giving them the same thing over and over. And so, you know, I know even when I was in school to become a teacher, the idea of reteaching, don't just move on, reteach it was brought up, but I don't think we ever, I know I sometimes didn't do the best job of it, and the short cycle assessment really helps me see in black and white that number. And I know that next week's bell work needs to be that because that's the particular standard I need to review. And so again, I think if your teachers can come together and really think as a department or as a grade level, the best way that they're going to track data, the data that's going to be really useful for them, they're going to have a lot easier time with this instead of trying, you know, we have this and we have this and we have this. You don't need all of that. You need a few things that you can make some judgments on and then go from there. So what I included in that packet is just a few things that we've created that help us document this, help us keep track of it, help try to keep us organized so we know what they need and what they've already mastered. Are there any questions about the teaching side of RISE? Concerns that you might have when you were presenting this to your teachers? I know it was very overwhelming. Dave hired me last year, and I signed the contract, and then, oh, by the way, we're a RISE pilot school. Isn't that great? You get that experience. And it has been. I think that, you know, we have a lot to offer in terms of sharing what we know. Any questions?
Okay, I think we have a half hour. We told it was going to end at 2. So we'll use this last half hour where if you have any questions, be glad to answer anything that we can share with you that might have come up over the course of the day. Anybody have anything?
This may be for you or Tammy or Dave, maybe. You talk about the spirit of collaboration, and one thing we're looking at high school principals, and we get into foreign language assessment, how effective a foreign language teacher is. And I mean, thinking of the same lines as I am, but I know you just started with department chairs. See anybody else you're going to be able to use in your building or in high school maybe that would be able to assist for effectiveness for evaluating the effectiveness of a foreign language teacher or someone that.
Well, as far as the departments go, you know, I do have my band director. He's in charge of one department. That's all the special, and that is tough because we have facts and we have art, and there's not that many teachers for them to collaborate with. So that is a lot tougher when you get together. As far as evaluating that assessment, you know, I probably going to knock on the door at Tammy and ask for some help there to be able to. What I'm looking for is rigorous, not necessarily. You know, do I know what the standard is, or do I know how to assess it? But is that question rigorous? Is it asking kids to create something?
In the classroom management, those kind of things you can, but I'm talking about how do you know when they're speaking a foreign language? You don't, unless you're trilingual or bilingual, it's pretty, I mean, how do you go about their...
And the way that, because it has definitely come up, and the other thing that we've also noticed is when they created their assessments, you know, their standards are the same for world languages. It doesn't matter if it's French or Spanish 1 or Spanish 4. But so it's just at a different level. So, you know, what I expect from them at the beginning is definitely different than what I'll expect at the end of the year as far as student growth. And so how do we create our short cycle assessments or our end of the year, you know, course assessment? When the principal's going in to evaluate though, you know, they may not understand the language, but the way that we track stuff is like T1 for teacher said, and then she calls on student 1, and you know, does she stay with student 1 or does she then jump to student 2, student 3? That's how he's recording that, not necessarily the verbiage that they're using, but the fact that they hold that student accountable, or did they allow that student to have release and call on someone else? There's definitely a lot more pre and post conferencing with the world languages that occurs that's critical, that you just trust them to be honest. But he really was able to track that evidence as far as how they were called on and the interaction and the level of engagement. So
it really wouldn't be a whole lot different for, say, a foreign language class than it would be maybe even for chemistry AP or calc AP. I mean, any of those, you're probably not going to have your principal, you know, an extensive knowledge in every single area that you have in your high school. So what you're looking for is good teaching strategy.
I've got on my band director's website before after the observation, because he used a lot of terms I'm not familiar with because I was never in band. Sure. So I actually got on his website and get an assessment on there, so vocabulary test. So I was telling him those. So it made him think I knew what I was talking about.
I can see it. Yeah, I can see what the pre and post can be really beneficial on those particular key areas. It may not be quite as knowledgeable as people teach that content. Thank you.
One of you talked at one point about some sort of data bank for student scores. What was the name of that again?
it's SDA, and it's through 5 Point.
ST?
5 star.
Thank you.
D.
SDA, so Student Data Access. And we got it through our Ed Service Center. It's how it started. It was offered free through the Ed Service Centers. Gabe, are you familiar with that? Okay. And we were allowed access to the ones that are basically state-driven tests, so ISTEP and Acuity and MClass. And then if you wanted to add additional tabs, it was for an additional fee at the district level. But because we wanted all those in one location, we were able to purchase those extra pieces to be uploaded.
Was it terribly expensive?
I think it actually came through the Wilson Center a couple of years ago. We've been a member of, worked with 5 Star for a couple of years. I'm not sure about all of the exact costs and all that. It didn't cost us anything at the time, but they offer like a cloud storage for your data, and we became associated with it a couple of years ago. If you want and you need more information about it, give me a call and I'll set you up with my tech director, and he can give you more information about that. Any other questions? I think your evaluations are in your folders then, and we'll let you get on your way.